Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's on the table this week? Those who have had to come out because of their sexuality know how difficult approaching that conversation can be. And when you add gender to the mix, that can open up the opportunity for a whole new form of prejudice. And with that being said, Daquan, what was your experience in coming out as non-binary to your friends, family, or coworkers? Or have you even come out at all?
Yes, no, sometimes, maybe so. I've definitely breached the topic with a lot of different people, and it's been a mixed bag of things. Sometimes it's been like, okay, cool. Like, what are your pronouns? How do you want to be referred to? X, Y, and Z. And it just like goes smoothly. Or, sometimes there's been a lot of like, I don't really get it, or I'm not understanding. I just need time. And like, I give certain people grace that I care about because I care about them, but I
Yeah.
still want and still need that respect. That respect is my boundary. If I'm not getting respected, then like this cannot be happening.
Yeah.
So it was really a mixed bag. And even now, it's something that, I feel like I don't really come out anymore because I don't like the language of coming out. It's something where it's like, frankly, exhausting. And it's more of letting certain people in. So even at work, like, I'm not out to every single person. I'm not, having my pronouns in uh, my little email signature and like telling people that I'm non-binary because frankly, like, if I'm emailing you one time, I don't really need you to
To know
know
all
that
my
stuff.
stuff.
Like it's not really that important. But like, for example, my team members who I talk to on almost a daily basis, they know my pronouns because we interact a lot more. And so I feel like for them, they're allowed to be in that kind or have that knowledge of me because after a certain amount of time, I was like, okay, like I feel comfortable enough in this space and we work closely enough that I feel like I can invite you into this part of my life. But I'll pass it back over to you.
Um, I have come out to my family, coworkers, and friends, and just like you said, it's been a mixed bag of responses. Telling my sister was incredibly easy, and she just adjusted no problem. My mom struggled a bit, but she accepts me and tries her best to respect my pronouns. Coming out to my coworkers has been an experience. Um, I dealt with a lot of bullshit from many of them in the first few months of being out. Had to have a lot of meetings, but back then it was harder because I was a librarian substitute. So I was dealing with coworkers from multiple library branches with vastly different personalities and beliefs. Surprisingly, though, and I don't know if you run into this before, but I found that the people who I expected to have the most trouble with my pronouns have been incredibly respectful. And the people who I thought that this would be like a cakewalk for were the ones I had the most trouble with. And aside from my family, this has been pretty consistent across the board. I mean, there was this guy who I'd considered my best friend for nearly 5 years, who I've talked about on the podcast before, who was fully accepting of me being gay. However, when I came out as non binary and had the pronoun change, he became an entirely different person. I mean, I won't get into that again, but basically, I had no choice but to end the relationship, the friendship, and sever ties entirely because he refused to respect me. And one of the hardest parts about being in the LGBTQI community is coming out. And I can't remember where I heard this from, and I think you were touching on this a little bit, but someone said that coming out isn't really what many people think it is. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but the gist of what they said was coming out is not so much an announcement for everyone to know who you are, so much as it's a way for us to take an inventory of who we can allow in our lives moving forward. And I wholeheartedly agree. Had I not come out of the closet as non binary, I would have never known that my ex best friend was never really my best friend. I would have never been able to see how throughout our friendship that He found ways to avoid taking responsibility and accountability for his actions and apologizing for when he hurt my feelings. Coming out helped me recognize who were the real friends and family in my life. And even though I lost a few people in coming out, I don't regret it one bit because I no longer have to edit who I am when I'm around the people that I love or work with. But my experience is not the same as others. And I also recognize what a great privilege it is that my pronouns are respected by my immediate family, friends, and coworkers without fear of certain repercussions, like loss of support, being put out, or being fired. I mean, coming out was helpful to me, but not everyone feels safe enough to do that. And that's very valid. If someone chooses to remain in the closet for the rest of their lives, that's their fucking business. You have to do what's best and safest for you. But like, Daquon, I want to ask you, did you run into any kind of negative experiences coming out?
I think in general, the negative experiences has been kind of just like family meeting time. And I
Oh,
think
okay.
that, uh, it can be an adjustment for people.
Yeah.
I know for me, like, it took me a long time to understand who I was. So I can only imagine how much time it'll take for, like my family who's been with me since I was born, literally, to understand uh, coming out and all of the
Yeah.
things that come with it. But I've been, lucky enough to have an experience that's been generally positive. I've never really had anybody trying to be directly disrespectful to me or hurtful or
Mm,
hateful or anything like that, which I consider a huge blessing because like you said, it can be a mixed bag, and my mixed bag has just leaned more positive, but some people's can lean very negative and very harmful.
yeah. What about any affirming experiences with coming out? Any good ones, like really, really particularly good ones?
I think in general, the most affirming parts have been like when coming out just like goes smoothly, where it's like, okay, cool, and we can like move on because like I said before, it's exhausting and I hate for it, like you said, I don't want it to be this big announcement where it's like everything's changing and this is this huge deal. Like, no, it's my life. Like, I deal with it being non-binary every day. Like, it's not this huge thing for me, and I appreciate it when I invite people into this part of my life that they also don't make it this huge thing. And I think even just like senior year of just like being an RA and like having RA meetings and people using they them pronouns to refer to me, that was like, wow. Like, that felt very affirming. And it's just the small things of just being able to use they them pronouns or even using more gender neutral language. Like, I love when people, move towards gender neutral language because we don't have to say boys and girls all the
Exactly.
time or
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen because it's like there's a lot of people. So seeing that shift and like seeing just how smooth everything goes has been the most affirming because like I said before, I don't want some big deal like, oh, give me a hug and like all that.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not with that
It's
shit.
not all
Like,
that. Yeah.
I'm telling you and you keep it pushing. That's the best thing you can do with me.
Yeah, I have to agree wholeheartedly. Like some of the most affirming experiences coming out are sadly some really basic level shit. It's just people respecting the pronouns. Like, even if they don't personally connect to my experience. And Daquan and I have talked about this in private before, but so many people have this obsession with trying to quote understand why someone is the way they are. But what we found is that this whole I'm just trying to understand argument is actually just a guise for them to seek justification for your identity. See, understanding something requires empathy and self reflection. For example, I don't personally identify with the pronouns they, them. However, when I reflect on my pronouns, I'm able to see that when people knowingly use the wrong ones, it makes me feel bad. This helps me understand why I should respect Daquan's usage of they them pronouns. However, this is not what many people do. I've had several people, even in the LGBTQIA community, ask me why I use she, her pronouns rather than they, them pronouns as a non-binary person. Now, on the surface, this question seems harmless, but it's not about what you say. It's about how you say it. And whenever I've answered simply with, and I'm sure you've said the same thing too, Daquon, because these pronouns are what feels right to me. And they go on to try to tell me something like, well, you can't be non-binary. Well, you must be gender fluid or something. You just must be a trans woman to have these pronouns and so on and so forth. As if the fuck I haven't already done this reflection and research myself. But I just, let me make one thing clear. My identity and sexuality are not up for debate. I don't care if if who I am doesn't make sense to you. I don't care if you're confused, and I don't owe you an explanation or a justification. All I expect is the same respect I give to you. If you're that curious to know more and someone chooses not to explain, baby, Google is free 99. But in the words of TikToker Michaela Jennings, the girls that get it, get it. The girls that don't. And if you don't get it, then you're obviously not that girl.
Period. And I also have to say, like, it's so important to just get it, because respect and empathy is not a hard thing to do. Like you said, it's just reflecting on your own experience should be enough for you to understand why you should respect and have empathy for other people. For example, I don't know why somebody named Richard would want to be called Dick. I don't know why somebody named William would want to be called Bill. But if I met somebody who went by those nicknames or whatever, I would respect that, because that's what they want. And so I don't get how people are like, well, they're a good person, but they're just like confused. It's like, are they really though? Like, it's not that hard to understand. And if you don't understand it, like you said, Google is free. Google is free. We've been dealing with this for years, decades, centuries. People have been identifying with they, them pronouns or non-binary or third gender or all of these different experiences. It's not something new. There is plenty of resources that you can go and get if you need help.
And I think that also, Daquon, like another thing that I've seen also is that these people are so like unaware of their own self enough to realize just how to respect other people. So like I remember having these arguments with people when I had to go through those meetings and stuff like that, where they were like, well, I just call you what I see you. I call you as it is, and X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, but if I called you Mr. and you identify with she, her, you would be mad as fuck. And you're like, yeah, because I'm not a man. Okay, I'm not either. And they were like, well, you dress and da-da-da-da. And it's kind of like, so when you're not dressed in a dress, we don't have a dress on, or you don't have, very feminine clothing on. If I called you a man, wouldn't you be offended by that? If I called you he, him, wouldn't you be mad about that? Well, yeah, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, yes, and it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And like I said, even with, Daquon, like, even though I personally don't use they, them pronouns, I use she, her pronouns. And with that knowledge, I can say, oh yeah, I can understand why Daquon's like, oh yeah, they, them is my pronouns. And there's no need for them to go any further about that. There's no need to be, oh, we got to have a whole, well, Daquon, why is that your thing? Or what made you think that this is what it is? It's kind of like, oh, okay, it's they, them. Or now it's she, her, whatever it is. It's not my business. It's not my business.
Like my gender, my sexuality, it centers me. It's all about me.
I'm the main character.
I am the main character. So I don't need to water down my experience and my identity to center you and your knowledge.
That part.